Well, I'm honored to be here, and I am a little nervous about public speaking, so you'll have to bear with me. I'll try my best. A little bit of the farm history context is always important. I started farming in 1991, although I had started apprenticing maybe 3 years before that, on 4 farms. We've grown to about 110, 120 acres of vegetable crops. We market primarily, or almost exclusively, entirely through a CSA program. At our peak, we were at about 4,000 farm shares. That was about in 2015. We've declined a little bit since then due to the challenges of the new marketplace, Blue Apron, Hello Fresh, all these other. We rent 2 farms in Pennington, Mercer County. That's in the Piedmont, so it's a red shale, silt loam, very good soil for organic production. Some of them are deep, well-drained. And we own 2 farms in Chesterfield, Burlington County. That's in the intercoastal plain. Soil type is totally different. It's fine sandy loam based on green sand type glauconite. I first wanted to start off by just talking about some of my off-the-cuff anecdotal observations about what I've noticed about climate, how the climate has changed since I've started, and how it's kind of impacted me. A lot of this is, it's already been discussed, but unpredictable weather patterns throughout the season that seem to lock in. I mean, maybe it's just me, they seem to lock in for a period of time. So if it's wet, it's probably going to be wet for a little while, and then it might turn dry, and then it'll be dry for quite some time, and then who knows what comes after that. Warmer springs and falls, only potentially providing for a longer growing season, because it's not always totally reliable, as the weather outside is suggesting now. And actually, as last fall also brought to bear, where we had this really early killing frost. I think it was in early November, really hard frost. And from my perspective, and maybe it's just because wet weather scares the crap out of me. It scares me more than dry weather, because with wet weather, I can't do anything. With dry weather, I can irrigate. Maybe if it's a sustained drought, of course, that's a different matter. But down here, at least as far as I've experienced, we have not had the severe droughts of 1999, and there was another one a couple years later, maybe 2001. I can still remember the 99. I mean, that was unbelievable. I could skip this record-breaking summer temperatures, crop quality. It impacts the pollination of some crops. It can kill pollen at certain temperatures. There's certain you can choose your variety accordingly. Like there are hot set tomatoes, hot set snap beans, and so on. I just wanted to make the point that it doesn't really take really extreme weather to have an agricultural impact. It can be kind of small, incremental, but it's for example, a half inch of rain every other day for a week can keep you out of the field. I mean, it's not a tornado or a hurricane or extreme downpours, but it's just a little bit of rain over a protracted period of time. It can have a really big impact, especially on a farm like mine, where we're doing, I don't know, like 50 crops for our CSA. We're on a tight schedule. Every week we're planting. If we can't get out there, things kind of back up, and then you have to do maybe triage. I've been asked to talk about our carbon sequestration. Adding carbon to the soil is well known to improve the resilience of the soil for dealing with the impacts of climate change. But it also can be a solution. Putting the carbon back into the soil, finding ways to do that can actually be a solution to mitigate all the carbon dioxide that we've been dumping into the atmosphere. And a lot of these have already been talked about, I guess. Cover cropping, our compost applications. We get horse manure in wood chip and sawdust bedding from a local farm. A biochar, we do get in deliveries of biochar. We blend that with our manure, and then we let it sit for at least a year. Biochar can be a little difficult to handle. It's very alkaline, and it sucks nutrients, so you can't really directly apply it to your field, because it'll take the nutrients that your crop should be getting, so you have to kind of charge it with nutrients. And this was something I've also just over the years been experimenting with different techniques with resources available to try to improve organic matter. This is where I have been receiving just tractor trailer loads of wood chips from the local utility crews. You apply those to your field, you work them in, and then in the fall you seed a legume like a hairy vetch. And I have this working theory that's never really been substantiated, but I'll throw it out there, that if you can get your organic matter, your raw organic materials into the soil and get them digesting in the soil, you can actually sequester more of the carbon than if you were to compost it first. So this is kind of an effort to do that. The wood chip's very high in carbon, and then planting the legume is going to provide and leach nitrogen that can then assist with the breakdown in the soil, and you get full bang for your buck. There's a load of biochar coming in. And then our coping strategies. How have we been dealing with these changes in the weather? The first, of course, is something that you have to kind of prepare for in advance. Like if you're in a position of choosing to rent a farm or buying a farm, you want to start with the best possible situations. You want your really well-drained soils, relatively flat, so you don't have to worry as much about erosion. That's just common sense. And not only that, but you want to maintain these soils in a good tilth, and you also want to provide subsurface drainage when it's viewed as beneficial. And increases or additions of organic matter will improve your water holding capacity and soil structure, which improves your drainage, which improves the resilience to deal with intense rainfall. And gypsum applications can also help to break up sublayers of clay. It'll actually work down through the soil in time and help to get that to flocculate and to kind of loosen. And of course, you also want to do the right thing and establish grass waterways, water diversions, contours, to get the water out of the field where it's not going to impact your operations, but you want to do it safely. This is just one of our fields in at the home Pennington farm where we have contoured it. I contoured most of my fields myself. I have had some assistance from NRCS, but it was a practice that was developed back in the Dust Bowl days, and you can actually buy these old booklets on how you can make your own level out of a pair of binoculars or something. I don't know, but I actually use the laser level, and I can actually do a better job than I think NRCS is prepared to do, because I do it point to point. So I'm doing it actually on a curved arc, whereas when I've had NRCS do it, they tend to just go straight line. And plus the aesthetics. Your customers will ask you, because we do direct marketing, why the fields look that way. I mean, it's very attractive, and it kind of drives the point home that you're doing something to mitigate erosion. And then I've also broken down our coping strategies into other categories, like what we do management-wise. Improving the crop environment to deal with the potential for extreme rainfall. Raised beds, it can save a crop. It'll prevent the root system from getting waterbound. Protected culture, that's just tunnels and stuff. I have photographs that's already been talked about. And then white and reflective plastic mulches can reduce soil temperature if you're planting a later early crop, like a mid-season lettuce crop, for example. Although white is actually better than silver, because silver can, all that light reflecting up, it can actually impact the crop. And then just common sense risk reduction, strike when the conditions are perfect. I mean, not perfect, but when you have a shot at something, you just have to be a step ahead of the weather to kind of minimize your risk. We also use this is what we use for bedding. This is a British-made bed former. It's not as harsh on the soil as some bedders, which I'll kind of show the features. It does have these special tines that kind of slice more horizontally than vertically, so you don't get panning, you don't get smearing. It also has a rear harrow that tends to so that it prepares a structured bed, so you're not finely tilling any more than you have to. It does a very rough till, the front tines, and then the harrow comes in and just prepares a light seed bed. So you're not really destroying the soil as much as like a rototiller would just destroy everything. This kind of shows the special no-pan tines. This is just making the point that if you're faced with unpredictable weather, you want to try to get operations done as quickly and efficiently as possible, because you may have very limited windows in which to do the work, especially, historically in the spring. One of my favorite tools is the Iman's rotary spader. I wouldn't really advise it, because if you do what we did, in this case, it is a little harsh on the soil, but you can go in with into a field with a mature crop of rye and vetch in the morning, and have a planted watermelon crop in plastic mulch by the end of the day. And being able to have that flexibility makes me a little less anxious. And this isn't mine, but it shows what's possible. Here it's being used to fumigate a field. I guess that's over in Holland. My unit is older than this, but they can travel my unit can travel anywhere from half a mile per hour up to 1 to 1.5 miles per hour. They do have new versions of this machine that can go much faster, maybe 2 to 4, maybe even faster. And this just kind of gives the breakdown of how the machine is composed. So the bedder, it does rough till, and then it'll do a fine till only where necessary. And just as an illustration of how gentle this machine can potentially be on the soil, I have actually run over little rabbits. And turkey eggs, and it's just amazing to see them there alive, unscathed after you've run them over. You wouldn't want to try that with like a rototiller. And then protected culture. This has already been discussed. It'll protect from weather extremes, can also shelter the crop from disease conditions. We have 2 acres of hay grove tunnels. We're looking to put up another acre that we bought used. We do our early tomatoes with basil downy mildew. We now do basil in 2 bays, and then we close it up, and we try to cook everything because basil downy mildew does not like high temperatures. It'll kind of thwart it a little bit. And we also do our early peppers, and then we rotate between these 2 blocks. This shows a tomato crop in one of the bays of hay grove tunnels. And then this has been my latest madness, I guess. Putting tree fruits into tunnels. So we have 4 tunnels that are 200 feet long, 28 feet by 200 feet, and we have peaches, nectarines, apricots, Asian plums in those tunnels. We're still working out the details. In addition to this, just as an aside, we also have a dwarf planting of apples, disease-resistant, scab-resistant apples. We have Asian and American persimmon. We have hazelnuts. We have American pawpaw. These are orchard-sized, small orchard-sized plantings, half acre and up. And then we also have hardy kiwi. We also have several hardy persimmon and rosemary in there. Pomegranate. We have several hardy pomegranate cultivars in there, which is kind of unexpected. What's that?
Pomegranate, because they can tolerate these cold temperatures, right?
Well, the pomegranate originated like in the Middle East, and there are some northern areas that it's part of the same ethno-cultural area. So you could see where potentially over time, like Kazakhstan, the mountainous areas, where they would have actually developed over millennia a cold-tolerant pomegranate. I mean, they're large. They're not like small. They're large. They're almost indistinguishable, but they do have hard seed, whereas like the wonderful type that's grown in California, that's soft seed. But you don't really notice it. You're just so happy that you have a pomegranate.
What's your experience with biochar?
I think it's partly ideological. I like the idea that this is carbon. It's going to be in the soil for hundreds of years. And I like also that it has these outstanding agricultural properties where it's going to increase my cation exchange capacity. It does, it can be expensive. There are actually ways where you can produce your own on farm. I don't know what the state of New Jersey would say about my burning a brush pile in a pit. They probably would have something to say about it. That is kind of but that 22-ton pile, I think it was under $5,000 delivered. And we're kind of targeting it to very sandy parts of the farm where we could use an improvement in cation exchange capacity. So we're not applying it on all 110 acres.
What's your source?
I actually had a staff person source it. We looked at a couple of different sources. He was from New England. I could get that to you. I don't remember the name of the company. There were also sources in Georgia. I think there were some in out west, but the transport. I mean, what's the point of getting biochar from, I don't know, Tennessee or something? Your carbon footprint is kind of huge. So this kind of worked out, and so it's partly a feel good, partly has agronomic or soil properties that we're really looking forward to, and it just kind of gets us familiar with the use of the material.
How do you clear the snow, like shed the snow from your tunnels?
Oh, those. Well, we're in New Jersey, so these are actually greenhouse structures, so they're strong enough to take a snow load, at least where the peaches, where the fruits are. But the Haygrove multi-bay tunnels, that system is really only it's only a three-season tunnel. So it's kind of a hair puller. You can go into December, but if you get a snowfall, you're either out there in the middle of the night getting the snow off your 2 acres, or you're going to lose your tunnels. So it is only they're only 3 seasons. So early December, you actually have to drop the plastic. It's kind of an ordeal, and you put it into the crotch between the bays, and then you wrap it with like shrink wrap. It really, to do 2 acres, it takes maybe 3 rolls of shrink wrap, and then you have to put it back up in the spring, or for us, we usually put it up early April. So that's coming up.
What kind of manure do you use with your biochar?
I use the horse manure and wood chip and sawdust bedding. We're in a part of New Jersey where there's a lot of horse farms, and although we see the mushroom trucks from Kennett Square going by our farm every week or so, they don't want to touch manure in sawdust or wood chips. I guess it just doesn't work with their mushroom production. But they send trucks out all the way from Kennett Square to clean out. They provide a service, I guess, and which makes it very attractive to the equine operation. So they kind of capture, the mushroom growers in Kennett Square capture all the horse manure in hay and straw. But it's a nice material, but it just takes a while to break down. And I don't know, it produces a very good quality compost.
I was just wondering, with the narrowing windows you mentioned, do you feel some pressure to reduce your crop diversity or simplify your rotation?
I think I feel pressured to try to get it done faster, because I know that the market is becoming more and more increasingly strict, even for CSA. There's a lot of competition out there. It's not just from other farmers, although I think that that's having a minimal impact on us. I think it's from, there's kind of a ground shift going on, or whatever, earthquake of in the produce industry. At least this is what I'm seeing, where we're getting, consumers want to buy, they don't really want to buy their produce from CSAs anymore. I think they want to get them from Blue Apron, Hello Fresh. I think in New Jersey alone there must be like at least a dozen or more of these aggregator type, boxed meal type programs, and I think it's going to have a kind of a big impact. So we continue to try to grow the same cash crops because that's really what the market demands. And then with cover crops, we've done an okay job, not really a great job with cover crops. I know that we do need to make some improvements there, which I'm hoping to be able to do in the coming years. Well, but we plant things like rye and vetch. I've also done what I think is a good no-till system that does not require a drill, where you plant your rye and vetch in the fall, and you let it go to maturity the following. This is on land that you're not going to put into vegetable crops. You're going to retire it. You're going to do that what you were suggesting of kind of retiring, doing heavy vegetables, retiring for a couple of years, heavy vegetables, retiring. Let it go to maturity, and then you go in and broadcast sorghum Sudan over after it reaches maturity, and then mow down the rye and the vetch, and then cultipack it. And the rye and the vetch, that organic matter will mulch the sorghum Sudan, and the cultipacking will help to make the contact between the seed and the soil. And then you get a stand of sorghum Sudan, and then come the fall, you kind of mow that down, and then your rye and vetch that had self-seeded comes up. The downside is that you will have vetch in your crop for a while, but it doesn't seem to be, for many crops that's not really a problem. It depends on when you're going to be planting them.